The end of the first chapter were things like, what did you always dream to be? What did you always want to be? If you could be anything, what would it be? If you could do anything, what would it be? What would you do? And I stared at the page, and I couldn't answer the questions. And, man, I'm going to be just like the last speaker here now. I got a hold of Terry, and I told him, I can't answer these questions. I told him, I think I forgot how to dream. And it was a very eye-opening moment. A few months later, I went and spent 3 days with Terry to help me kind of get all the pieces that were up in the air, kind of like that when they shoot that kid on Willy Wonka and Chocolate Factory, he's in a million pieces. I was in a million pieces. I had the idea for a story catcher 4 years ago and was really dragging my feet with it. I spent 3 days with Terry, and he helped take those million pieces and put it back into something I could see. And I could see me again is what I could see. In the 2 months since I spent 3 days with Terry, I've done more with the story catcher, my business, than I had in the past 4 years. Yeah. So Terry means a lot to me. I'm trying to be like, So if you would, give him the biggest round of applause you can and welcome my friend Terry Weaver.
Those ears, buddy. Look at those ears. Give it up for Chad. My boy's gonna soar. I'll get the commercial out of the way. I've got my book, Making Elephants Fly. I normally don't like travel with it. Normally when I do conferences, the conference planner, I said, if anybody wants books, order them, we'll give them away, whatever. But I do have books. Phil and I both actually have elephants on our book cover, so we're sharing a book table back there. And I'd love to give you, they're $20, and I'd love to sign it. I've only got like 20 books with me, so if you want one, catch me at the next break. But I wanted to talk to you guys about something that I'm super passionate about, and that's this idea of burying your genius. How many of you right now in here, just a quick show of hands, and I want you to be really honest with me, could say, you know what, Terry, I spend most of my time doing that one thing that I only can do in my zone of genius? How many could say that, honestly? Most of us are stuck, and our genius is buried somewhere. So I want today to kind of go and help you find it a little bit. And if you haven't tell, I've got the Falcon on my shirt here. But I'm a Star Wars fan. Did anybody else a Star Wars fan here? And you all remember the time, and for some of us it was in the 70s, for some of us it was in the 80s, for some of us it was in the 90s, for some of us it was just a couple years ago, when these words came on the screen. And what I love about the last trilogy that came out was getting to go back to the theater again and hearing an entire theater of 500 people see these words on a screen and this logo pop up and the entire theater erupting. And I love Star Wars. Star Wars for me has always been a place of release. I grew up in a broken home. By the time I was 19, between my mom and dad, there were 9 marriages represented. And by that time, the divorce was just part of our life. My father actually recently passed away. I didn't know about it until months later, because in reality, he had been dead to me for a long time. And that's kind of my story. So I got lost in the galaxy, literally. The Skywalkers were kind of part of my family, and I know some of you are like, this is like nerd level 5,000 for me. And so just hang on with me for a minute. But these people were like family, and so I want to kind of unpack a little bit. And I recently watched the Obi-Wan series on Disney+. If you don't know, I have a Disney podcast as well called WDW Today. We're the longest-running Walt Disney World podcast. We have a pretty massive base in listenership. We're not very good at putting them out on a weekly basis, but we are good at when we're coming around just causing a ruckus. But I remember sitting down to watch the series and I was like, oh, there's the Star Wars I remember. There they are, like that moment in Peter Pan when he grabs Peter's face and says, oh, there you are, Peter. I had that moment watching this. And I noticed something because I'm a noticer. Anybody else a noticer? Like maybe as they do. Anybody else feel like you're that kind of person? You see things and you kind of pull things out. Well, I saw this happen in this series. And I began to wonder what was happening when Obi-Wan Kenobi, and now this was the Kenobi of the first 3 episodes, episodes 1, 2, and 3, that a lot of Star Wars fans don't like. But I saw them for the first time because my little brother was born when I was 18. And I saw them through his lens. And so I was one of those guys when Jar Jar Binks came on the screen. My little brother lost his mind. So I remember this Ben Kenobi. And I began to wonder, like, what in the world are Jedi, these super powerful human beings, burying their genius, their power, their thing in the desert? And because, like a good Star Wars fan, we rewatch these things over and over. And what's amazing about Star Wars storytelling, and I've spent some time at Pixar and Disney, and being around them and working with them just through the podcast and through kind of like the work that I do in our conference that I run called The Thing. We have Disney Imagineers and Disney executives that speak at. So I've gotten to be around this community and this creative environment and this creative energy. And there's always these little things, I call them Easter eggs. And they're all throughout. And some of them are like kind of funny and goofy. Like you can find the Pizza Planet truck in every every Pixar movie. It's there somewhere. They've hidden it somewhere, whether it's on a bulletin board or that license plate is on there. And the license plate tells a story too, because they're not going to miss a chance to tell a story. But I began to watch another movie, The Rise of Skywalker, the last one, the grand finale, and then once again, here's another Jedi in the desert burying their genius in the sand. And I began to think of myself, and I began to think of my friends, and I was like, man, I know people that do that. I know people that have their genius buried in a distant desert. And I kind of want to unpack a few deserts today that I think you or I might have our genius buried in. But I want to ask you that where is yours buried? How many of you would call yourself an entrepreneur? Just so I kind of get a room. You're an entrepreneur, solopreneur, you run a small business. How many of you are employees? How many of you are just own a small business, brick and mortar, small business owners? Okay, that helps me. Where have you buried your genius? Too many leaders bury the one thing that is their superpower. They bury the one thing that differentiates them from being the great Jedi that they could be, being that great hero that the world is waiting for. Because I believe that all of us have these heroic geniuses built in us, these powers, these unique gifts that we have been given to do something with in the world. Do you believe that? Do you believe that you have a skill that no one else has? And you have a way to tell a story or do a thing or write a book or help a client in a way that no one else can. The first place that a lot of us find it is your genius is stuck in someone else's business. Too many of us end up wasting our life trading time for dollars. I found myself in that trap where I felt like my value to somebody was in the deliverables that I provided to them. Now, you just heard Chad shared with the work that I do. Chad came to my house for what I call a VIP day, where I kind of get in someone's business, kind of break it down and bring it back up. What he shared, every time he says it, I'm like, dude, you're wrecking me when you say that, because I know that's what I do, but I have a hard time saying that out loud. They're like, hey, dude, you spent 3 days with me, and that was better than like 3 or 4 years of my life, like of me working towards this big goal. And so I want to help get you unstuck. Are you stuck getting paid for what you do and not what you know? That is the one thing standing between most entrepreneurs and leaders and the life they want and the money they want. Is you have valued your services and your deliverables higher than you value your knowledge. We just had our conference in Nashville that I call The Thing. We do it twice a year. We do one in Orlando, one in Nashville. And I remember helping one of my clients, and one of the things I help clients do sometimes is write books. And I was having this moment where one of my people that I work with wants to write a book about play. And I'm like, okay, dude, here's the deal. We're going to give you a 30-day outline, and you're going to have this book written in 30 days. And this dude is on it. Like, it's been 2 weeks, and I just got chapter 14 from him. Like, I gave him an outline, I gave him a path, and I showed him how it was possible, and he is killing it. Now, granted, I spent an hour doing this, 2 hours doing this with him. But I literally said out loud in the middle of the session, damn, I'm good at this. Because I needed to hear it from myself. I needed to know and remind myself that the knowledge that I brought to the table was powerful for someone else. Some of us are hiding our genius behind failure. We're hiding our genius behind our past failures, behind the things that we have failed on in the past, behind the things that we have maybe made a mistake with in our past mistakes and our past struggles. I don't know about you, but I have had some miserable failures. Have you? Just things that completely flopped. Like things that I had massive expectations for that just didn't go the way that I hoped. Real failure, though, is not starting. Real failure is not taking action. It's not in your mistake. The real failure that most people in the world struggle with is they have that was the big idea behind making elephants fly. One day I was sitting in a Starbucks in Franklin, Tennessee, where I live, and I literally had asked everybody at that Starbucks, what did you come to Nashville for? And not one person said, you know what I came to Nashville for? To make you coffee. They all said, I want to write songs. I want to be a filmmaker. I want to do this. And I realized the elephant in the room for them was their unlived dreams. If there's anything I'm more aware at this point in time in my life, and as the years climb higher, is that I and all of us have one reality in life, and that is we are going to die. It's the only thing we can guarantee is that, and that we're going to have to pay taxes. From the time you were born, the time was planned for your life to end. And you don't know when that is. I don't know when that is. But I'll tell you what, I want to make the most of that time while I'm here. And I want to live a life. I want to leave the planet better. And I want to do work that matters and do things that really matter. See, so for some of us, though, our genius is buried behind trying to be Han Solo. And I was that guy, because I'm a proud solopreneur. I can do it. I don't need a team. I can work 87 hours a week, because that's why I got out of the business world and became unemployable. And so instead of working 40 hours a week, I can work 87 hours a week. Did anybody have that dream? Trade that dream in. That's a nightmare. We don't want that dream. That's a nightmare. You don't want to work that much. The real work is that the knowledge that you have begins to go to work for you. And I've met a lot of you. I've gotten to hang out with a lot of the speakers. I don't know if you guys know this. What you're experiencing in this room today is not normal. Small town America are not gathering today full of a room full of some of the brightest minds in marketing and media on the planet. And you're here. And I don't want you to waste that moment and that time that you're here. One of my favorite quotes, it's literally the quote that drives 88% of the work I do. I just pulled that number out because it's fun to make up statistics, isn't it? But it's literally one of my favorite quotes, and I remember when I heard it, and I'll kind of give you a little context for this quote, that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. Anybody ever heard this quote? And this quote sounds amazing, right? Out of context, most of us don't have context. Now, I want you to go into context a little bit on this quote with me and think about this context that you are in a pack of zebras. If you are the slowest zebra, You don't want to go alone. You want to go together, right? Because you know what happens to the slowest zebra? Has anybody seen the Jungle Cruise ride? Anybody been on Jungle Cruise at Walt Disney World or Disneyland? You get invited for dinner. My favorite joke on the Jungle Cruise. Oh, look at the little zebra over there. They invited him over for dinner. And literally on the savannah, if you don't go with others, you die. And I want you guys to know this. The most powerful thing you can do in your life and your business is get in community with other like-minded people. The most important work that I do as a human, I love coaching, but really, my real genius is getting people around tables. And I do this through a couple of things. I've told you about the thing. That's our group. That's our group from our VIP day last year in Orlando, right in front of the Millennium Falcon, actually, right as we were about to take a VIP tour backstage. The dude on the far with the red hat is a Disney Imagineer that created the little ride called the Tower of Terror, if you're a Disney fan. And he's one of my best friends in the world, McNair Wilson. He literally wrote the process for brainstorming for Disney, and him and I go and do corporate trainings around the country together. But there we were, and I've begun to do something else. I'm doing this thing in February called Mastermind at Sea, where I'm taking high-level entrepreneurs on a cruise. And so if that's you, if you want to get in community, those are the two things that's my like little plug for you. That's how I do it. I really believe in community. When you get people together in community, the potential to do things is much greater. The other place I think a lot of us hide our genius is we don't realize our own potential. We don't realize what we bring to the table. I'm a massive U2 fan. Anybody else a U2 fan? I just recently got back from New York to go see Bono at the Beacon Theater. And it was one of those like bucket list things. It was 2,000 people in a small theater and Bono on the stage telling stories about his new book, Surrender. When the new book came out, he did an interview on 60 Minutes and he shared this quote, that love is realizing another's potential. And he was talking about how U2, how they created as a community, and what made them great was the fact that they saw each other's potential. And I want to ask you a question. Do you have people around you that see your potential and are pulling it out of you? Many of you are stuck, and this, I'd really encourage you. We've just launched this. You guys are the first people to get this. So some of you are going to break it, but get that QR code really quick. Get your phones out. I'm not doing strategic stuff today because I really felt like I needed to do something different with you. But I've got a free course if you're stuck finding your thing. There's a little entrepreneur quiz you can take. And it's literally like a free course that I'm giving you right there. It's at that QR code or just at Discover Your Thing. People from my team stayed up all night last night to make sure it was working and happening. But I wanted to give that to you guys as my gift. It's literally like a $147 course that's yours for free today. If you're stuck finding your thing, or if you're not sure where you're at on your journey as a leader and an entrepreneur. Here's the one that really, really slaps me upside the head for a lot of people, is most of us are stuck living out someone's dream, someone else's dream. I remember, if some of you are like, Terry, how did you get in this? I got started doing this by speaking at churches, and that shifted me into doing public school assemblies. How many of you have ever stood on a stage in front of 3,000 middle school students? That's the real Tower of Terror, friends. But I remember talking to some students in Texas one time, and this kid came up to me, Terry, I know what I want to be. And this kid came up to me really serious, like little like middle school boy that like, you know, he would have this mic. He's like, I want to be the next Justin Bieber. And I looked him in the eye and said, dude, one Bieber is enough, bro. We don't need another Biebs. We need another you. Because you are the only you we have. And we need to stop trying to chase someone else's dream and someone else's plan for our life. I'm also a Hanson fan, since I'm just confessing all of my sins this afternoon. But I love this quote from Zach Hanson, that don't delegate your dreams to someone else. They're yours. They were given to you for a specific reason and purpose. Some of us are hiding our genius behind the pursuit of safety. We just heard a story about, someone who had to make a pivot. Anybody else have to pivot during the last couple of years? You learned that safety and job security was not a thing. Another great Hanson quote, I went to go see them at the Ryman Auditorium this summer. And they have this song that says, I was born for this. Dangerous people believe this. That dangerous people are able to step into their truth and know what they are made for and know what they believe and know what it is they're designed for by their Creator to do. And if you can believe the truth that you were born for a specific thing, you will change the world. Now what? What do we do with all this information? You are in the possibility business. You and I. How many of you are salespeople? Anybody in sales? Who's in marketing? You are in the possibility business. Now, I'm going to go way back in the Star Wars lore with this one. I'm going to go to this planet. Does anybody know what this planet this occurs on? Anybody? Dagobah. There we go. I was watching, my mom is a huge Star Wars nerd, and I said, hey mom, when they bring out Return of the Jedi, I want to take you to the movie theater. You took me the first time. It's on me. And so I was like, I'm going to rewatch Empire. And I rewatched this scene, and you know this scene, right? On Dagobah, at least these people over here do, where Luke Skywalker kind of takes a break from the galaxy and goes to hang out with Yoda for a couple of days. And I've seen this scene hundreds of times. But I saw something that I had never seen. And I'm going to try not to nerd out too much. But there's this amazing interaction. You know all the Yoda quotes where it's like do or do not? There is all of that, right? Size matters. A few of you. And there's a moment where Yoda kind of grabs Luke and he's like, here we're luminous beings, and there's all this nerd stuff. And Yoda was trying to teach Luke Skywalker how to use the Force to raise his fighter out of the swamp. And Luke's just getting really frustrated. And Yoda just stops for a minute and stops with all the Yoda-isms and the stuff. And he just literally, little Yoda raises his hand and uses the Force and shows him what is possible. And I caught this the other day because I rewatched it just 2 nights ago to get ready for this trip. And Luke looked at Yoda and said, man, I don't believe it. And then the scene ends and Yoda says, and that's why you fail. And you and I have to believe in ourselves. We have to believe in the possibility business that we're all in. Real quick, because there's no timer up here. Am I okay on time? 5 minutes, perfect. My mom got me the Millennium Falcon, and I couldn't bring this, but this is a box. I began to start to find old Star Wars toys, and they always said new in box. Have you ever bought anything on eBay that says new in box? And that's what people do. They sell it to you new in box, and if you're if you bought this, when you open the box, it loses its value, which is interesting, and we treat our lives like that, right? And I remember getting this gift, and I remember looking at the sticker, because when we see this one, that's the sticker. Yeah, the price tag always says when it's from, and many of us have these gifts that are left new in the box. They're left unopened. You are saving your genius in the attic for someone else to open later. And it is time, my friends, for you to open the box. That was me. That was me Christmas morning, freaking out over getting this. Freak out over two things: knowing that my mom probably way overpaid for this thing, because she thought it was the 1980s version. I'm like, no, Mom, that's the 90s version. That was Dalton's. But it's still freaking cool. And I'm literally going. I have not opened it since Christmas, and I'm going to a studio next week that's all decked out for Star Wars to record a piece of content around this. But I want you guys to stop hoarding your dreams and goals and instead make them a reality. It's time for your shovel. So here's what I want to do. I want you, just like all the Jedi, to get your genius out of the sand. Now, unfortunately, it's a little cost prohibitive thanks to the Walt Disney Company and their profit margin for me to give you one of these. But thanks to people on Etsy, I do have lightsabers for you. And they're buried in sand. And so as I kind of leave the stage, I'm going to invite you just to get up out of your seat. There's one on each side. I've made a complete mess with sand up here, completed a complete tripping hazard, but it was for you guys. I want you to come get your genius out of the sand and take this lightsaber home with you. I know you're not supposed to hold the lightsaber by the handle. Like, ignore that rule for a minute. And I want you to put this somewhere on your desk where you work. And I want you to remember that you were given a gift, that you have a genius, and it's time for you to live it out. And it's time for you to stop burying it in the sand. Thank you guys for coming today. So I want you to get up, come get, like, lastly, as you guys are coming and grabbing your sabers, and I've completed complete chaos because that's what I do. Be sure and connect with me on social media. Be sure and download that gift from me. I'd love to connect with you if I can help you. If I can maybe help you go digging in the sand a little bit. If you needed some help with that, I'd love to help you. And I'd love to have you come hang out at the thing with us. Thank you guys for having me, and have a great afternoon.